Alrighty. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Angie Mack, and I work in the Reader Engagement Department, along with tonight's speaker, Angie Stratham. Like I said, you get two Angies for the price of one tonight. So we're both happy to be here and look forward to tonight's program. Before I turn it over to Angie, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple quick housekeeping reminders. First, if you could keep yourselves muted, that'll help me. If you have questions as we go throughout, you can raise your hand, you are being recorded, or you can stick your question in the chat and we'll get to them perhaps periodically throughout tonight's program, or at least at the end. We'll try to answer your questions as soon as we can. Also tonight in the chat, I'm going to put a link to our online evaluation. We always ask that you give us feedback about every virtual program we do. So please fill that out and let us know how we did tonight or what you would like to see us do better. Let's see. You did chat box? Okay, I think I got all the housekeeping out of the way. I am going to go through a couple of upcoming programs that we'd love to have you attend. So the first one on our list is going to be a virtual program, July 22nd. July 22nd at 6:30 via Zoom. This is Architectural Wonders Throughout History. So in this program, we're going to explore the temples of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, as well as Romanesque and Gothic cathedrals, as we learn how these works illustrate man's creative and engineering prowess. And see how these achievements continued through 21st century architecture. So we're excited to have this program. Like I said, it's June 22nd, 6:30 via Zoom. Next, we have Owls Are a Hoot. Owls are, without a doubt, some of the most fascinating raptors that we have here in the Show Me State. We're going to join a naturalist from the Missouri Department of Conservation as we investigate the mysteries of these regal birds. So this is July 24th at 6:30 via Zoom. Mark Twain. He's the quintessential American novelist. Born Samuel Langhorne Clemens, Mark Twain was a humorist, journalist, lecturer, and novelist who garnered international fame through his travel narratives as well as his adventure stories. You're going to join Dr. Therfelder as he explores the life of one of America's best and most beloved writers. Mark Twain, July 31st, 6:30 via Zoom. Switching gears a little bit, navigating student loan debt and loan forgiveness. This gets complicated, and you're going to join John Anderson, who's a professor at KU and a CPA, as well as a financial consultant for Intellisense, as he guides us through the complex world of repaying a student loan debt. So this is July 31st at 6:30. It's a hybrid program. If you're in the Kansas City area and want to attend in person, you're going to be at the Lee Summit branch. If that's not an option, this is going to also be on Zoom. So you can register for either event using this link. Again, July 31st. Finally, we have The Godfather. That's going to be virtual only, August 7th at 7 p.m. This is our friend, a film enthusiast, Frank Mendoza, and we're going to explore the conception, production, and lasting legacy of this 1972 classic, The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. So they tell me this is a BYOC, bring your own cannoli. So we hope you can join us for that fun program about the movie The Godfather, August 7th at 7 o'clock. So that's all the programs that I have upcoming. But so now we're going to go ahead and turn it over to tonight's presenter, Angie Stratham. Angie, let me quit sharing here.
All right.
Maybe.
While we're getting switched out, if you are new to this program, this is something that I do quarterly. Our next one is coming up on November 19th, which is at a different time. It's at 6:30 instead of 7. But you can also find past programs on YouTube, and there is a link to that in the book list that I sent. And if you saw that, you saw I put a lot of books in there. I probably won't have time to get to all of them. We'll get to what we get to, and the rest you can read more about in the book list. Also, I kind of chose these by theme. And so some of the books on here I'll talk about in depth, and some might just get a brief mention. But they're all ones I've either read or I'm excited to read, and I hope you find ones that you're excited to read too. So up first, we have some books about people who are experiencing some money problems. And first up, we have There Is No Place for Us by Brian Goldstone. This one, if you love Matthew Desmond and his books Evicted and Poverty by America, then you might want to pick this one up. This one is an immersive account of the lives of 5 Atlanta individuals and families that shows a different side of the unhoused, those who are working but still don't have the means to get by or afford a home. And then Angie mentioned the program about student loan debt earlier. Our next novel, The Payback by Kashana Kali, is someone who takes a slightly different approach to her student loan debt. This one is about Jada, who is also struggling to get by, in part because of her accumulating student loan debt. She's on the run from the debt police and teams up with 2 former mall coworkers to plan a heist in order to wipe out their student loan debt. Crime Reads says, timely and riotous, The Payback delivers outstandingly on this spectacular premise. Kali's prose seems snappy and clever, painting a picture of a world that feels at the same time utterly absurd and chillingly close at hand. So a little bit Ocean's 11, except for with student loan instead of a casino heist. Up next, we have more books about wealth or the lack of it. In this case, the intersection of the haves and the have-nots. Weirdly, all of them involve boats in some way. So up first, we have more nonfiction, Lost at Sea by Joe Clark. Clark spent 9 years among the Anchor Outs in Marin County's Richardson Bay. And the Anchor Outs are an unhoused community who took up residence on abandoned boats in the harbor. These boats were abandoned during the last financial crisis. And these Anchor Outs are clashing with the wealthy residents who don't want them there. Which leads us right into our next book, The Haves and Have-Yachts, which is a series of essays from National Book Award winning author Evan Osnos, chronicling how the ultra-rich spend their money, which includes those lavish mega yachts, celebrities hired for teenage birthday parties, and much more. Many of these essays were originally published in the New Yorker. And you can see at the bottom of each, I've listed the date they all come out. Some of these are already out now, and some of these will be coming out very soon. And speaking of billionaires and boats, we also have a locked room thriller that takes place on a billionaire's yacht, and I Did Warn Her by Sharon Gilbert. This one is focused mostly not on the wealthy, but on the less wealthy crew members. So instead of an upstairs downstairs story, we have a above and below deck ones. This story will appeal to fans of the TV shows Below Deck or White Lotus. And writer Darby Kane says, this one is filled with mean girls, billionaires behaving badly, and wild chapter cliffhangers that will have you reeling. This floating locked room thriller twists through secrets and misdirects, keeping you guessing and leaving you excited to see what Sharon Gilbert's devious mind comes up with next. This one also got some Freedom McFadden comparisons as well. Our next set of books also focuses on wealth, in this case, pyramids, Ponzi schemes, and multi-level marketing organizations. Megan Abbott is a best-selling author who specializes in neo-noir books set within insular communities. So in previous books, she's set suspense novels set in the world of ballet, in the world of high school cheerleaders, and also the world of gymnastics. Now she turns to the world of 1980s era multi-level marketing organizations. So think Amway, Tupperware, Mary Kay, and El Dorado Drive. And after you've read this fictional version, you might want to move on to nonfiction with Little Bosses Everywhere by Bridget Reed. This one documents the history of MLM groups. If you love the documentary Lula Rich or the podcast The Dream, then this is a book that will let you dive in a little bit deeper into the history of MLM groups and their effect on society. Speaking of their effects, we also have How to Sell a Romance by Alexa Martin. In this book, Emerson is a kindergarten teacher who attempts to supplement her educator's salary with the Petunia Lemon MLM. Doesn't go so well for her. Lucas, her love interest, is a journalist whose wife was also a part of Petunia Lemon and lost all their money before divorcing him. Lucas is also the parent of a child in Emerson's class, and the two team up to investigate and take down the company. But can romance come alongside revenge? Find out on July 15th. All right, we also have more teacher protagonists in this next set of books. A trio of mysteries and thrillers with school settings or connections. If you like your mysteries on the cozy side, you might like The Game is Afoot by Elise Bryant. This is the second in a cozy mystery series starring PTA class mom Mavis. On this entry, she gets caught up in the murder of the director of her kids' soccer program. This is a funny mashup that is a little bit Lori Gelman's Class Mom, a little bit the TV show Abbott Elementary, with the dash of Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty thrown in. We have another cozy, History Lessons by Zoe Walbrick, which is the first in a new series. And this one, our sleuth is a history professor. And it comes with a side of the reality of life in the academy, as the author is also a French colonialism scholar and professor. Also has a slight romance subplot too. If you like your mysteries a little darker, you might like Dear Future Me. A common high school assignment is to have students write letters to their future selves. And Mr. Dandler asks his students to do that, and he sends them out 20 years later. It's now the class of 2003's turn to receive their letters, but instead of predictions of the future, these letters contain secrets about one of their classmates' deaths, which might have led to a current one, as class member Audrey jumps to her death after receiving her letter. Audrey's best friend Miranda sets out to track down their classmates and find out what the letters might reveal in this collision between the past and the present. All right, next we have some more books with letters as part of its appeal. So first we have The Near Future World of the Confessions by Paul Bradley Carr. In this near future, people outsource most of their decisions to an AI called Liam. And so when Liam goes offline, lots of chaos ensues. Amidst all the confusion, everyone in the world receives a letter saying, "We must confess," and it exposes their most shocking confessions. A tech CEO and a former nun who helped train Liam may hold the keys in this sci-fi thriller for fans of Blake Crouch or Michael Crichton, and comes out July 22nd. If you like your letters a little bit less terrifying and a little more heartwarming, you might like Storybook Ending. In this one, April leaves an anonymous note in a book, hoping to catch the attention of cute bookseller Wesley. But instead, that book is bought by another customer, Laura, who then thinks the note is from Wesley himself. So in this not quite love triangle, April and Laura continue trading notes and books, both thinking they're corresponding with Wesley when they're actually writing to each other. Wesley himself completely oblivious to the whole thing. This is a charming tale of books and friendship and is perfect for fans of Abby Waxman, Freya Sampson, or The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. Another epistolary novel that's a little bit more charming, we have A Town with Half the Lights On by Paige Getz. This one stars newcomers to a small Kansas town who are trying to save the town's beloved diner, and their efforts are told in emails, diary entries, and newspaper clippings. If you like The Chicken Sisters by KJ Del Antonia, which is also about two rival chicken restaurants in Kansas, small town Kansas. J. Ryan Stradle, whose heartwarming novels often center around food, or perhaps a less intense version of The Bear, you might like this one. All right. Well, these were interesting and fun stories about that involve letters, but what about the people who are delivering them? It turns out the members of the Postal Service have stories to tell of their own. So up first, we have the memoir Mailman by Stephen Starring Grant. In this one, the author tells his story of finding purpose and community after moving back to his Appalachian hometown and becoming a mail carrier, and a memoir described as being both hilarious and heartfelt. Turning to fiction, we have Mendel Station by J.B. Huang. This is about a woman who's grieving her best friend who takes a job as a mail carrier, but her timing is kind of bad. It's right before COVID-19, and so suddenly she finds herself an essential worker on the front lines. The author herself was a mail carrier during the pandemic. And Grace Lee, the novelist, says, "This is a glimpse into a singular moment in time and a deeply moving meditation on grief, isolation, and belonging." Next up is my current read, which is also about the Postal Service, but not the USPS. This one is about the indie band, the Postal Service, whose most famous song is Such Great Heights, which is the title of this nonfiction book by Chris DeVille, who's a writer for Stereo Gum, and it traces the history of indie rock in the 2000s. So think bands like The National, the Postal Service, Arcade Fire, the Shins. But even more than the music, this book is about the culture and technology behind it. So the soundtracks of the OC and Garden State, the invention of the iPod, MP3 blogs, Pitchfork, MySpace, all of which helped popularize the sound and lifestyle of indie bands and their hipster listeners. Bonus, some of the musicians profiled in this book happen to be writers themselves. So Colin Malloy of the Decemberists writes kids' books. John Darnell of the Mountain Goats writes very creepy fiction novels. Michelle Zahner of Japanese Breakfast wrote the acclaimed memoir Crying in H Mart. And Belle and Sebastian Stuart Murdoch just came out with a book this year. We have a few more musical reads for you that are noteworthy. I do love puns and alliteration, as you can see throughout this presentation. If you're someone who can't get enough of Beyonce's Cowboy Carter, or maybe you have the Grammy performance of Fast Car with Tracy Chapman and Luke Combs on repeat, then August Lane by Regina Black is your next read. August Lane is the daughter of Black country music legend JoJo Lane, and who is about to be inducted in the Country Music Hall of Fame. She's also an aspiring songwriter, but her most popular song was recorded by country star Luke Randall, who then took all the credit for it. Luke has just joined JoJo's farewell tour, which brings he and August back into each other's lives again. Romance novel Adriana Herrera says, "August Lane, like a good country song, breaks your heart and mends it all at once. A deeply emotional second chance romance that honors the place of Black artists in country music and affirms that no matter how far you've drifted from your dreams, there's always a chance to make a comeback." So moving from country music to heavy metal, and from romance to spy thriller and satire, we have White Python World Tour by Travis Kennedy. This one just came out this week. So this one is set in 1986 in the midst of the Cold War and the hair metal era. And it stars drummer Ricky Thunder, who joins the rising band White Python and inadvertently joins the CIA, because it turns out the CIA and the band are collaborating to write songs in order to spread democracy to the Eastern Bloc. This is apparently inspired by the real-life speculation around the song Winds of Change by Scorpion, which was the subject of a fantastic podcast by true crime writer Patrick Radden Keefe, also called Winds of Change. And if you like pop, we have Love is a War Song by Danica Nava. This one is about a Muskogee pop star who takes refuge at a reservation ranch after a scandal, and it's a fish out of water romance. All right, if you're looking for even more scandal, not the TV show, but the literary variety, our next two pair of books are inspired by a real life literary scandal. Earlier this year, Vulture posted a fascinating article about the intersection of two literary couples, an affair, and its fallout, which all four of them decided to write about. And two of those books are pictured here. So if you love it, Let It Kill You by Hannah Pittard is metafictional autofiction. In this book, the protagonist, Hannah P., has a midlife crisis moment when she learns that she's going to be the subject of her ex's debut novel. And it's not an especially flattering portrait. Set for Life by Andrew Yule is that debut novel, which came out in February of this year. So beat the publication of Hannah's book. But if you like your scandals on the more fictional side, we have another book that I'm in the middle of reading right now, which is Any Trope But You by Victoria Levine. In this one, Margot Bradley is a romance writer who secretly harbors a cynical view about romance after a bad breakup. She also has an even more secret file on her computer of happily never afters. So the epilogues of what happens after the HEAs of her best-selling romance books. These are much darker endings full of divorce, betrayal, recrimination. But when her secret file is exposed, she retreats to Alaska to write a mystery novel and instead encounters Forrest, the proprietor's son, and lots of different romance tropes along the way to potentially getting her own HEA and making her believe in love once again. This one is for fans of Emily Henry with its bookish bent. We also have two more romances centering romance writers that, as you can see by the titles, I just had to put together. So up first we have Writing Mr. Right, which is about a discouraged romance author who finds her muse has come to life. But as her career and her confidence grows, he starts to fade away. So is she going to choose her career or love? In this one, Library Journal says it's a heartfelt story centering Pakistani American and Muslim characters, set in New York City and featuring a prominent literary plot and fun, fantastical elements balanced with real-world storylines. This uplifting novel is a must-read for fans of multicultural and cozy romances. If you like Uzma Jalaluddin, who also writes cozy romances with Muslim American characters or Muslim Canadian characters, or Ashley Poston, whose romance novels include kind of fantastical and whimsical elements, then this is the author to try. We also have Writing Mr. Wrong. So if instead of uplifting, you like a little bit, you fall for the bad guys instead, the bad boys instead, then you might want to pick Writing Mr. Wrong by Kelly Armstrong. Gemma is a romance author who bases her bad boy Highlander love interest on a high school crush Mason, only to have someone track him down and surprise her on air. The two go on a few fake dates after all the attention, but will this reformed bad boy be good for Gemma after all? From romance writers, we turn to romance fans. So Nadine Gonzalez's debut romance, Only Lovers in the Building, involves two neighbors who discover they both love romance. So they first form a building-wide book club, which leads to a podcast, which just might lead to love. In this debut that makes nods to both the TV show Only Murders in the Building with its podcast plot and the romance novel X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. And in the book Boyfriend, a Romantasy Uber fan attends a Romantasy con and runs into her work nemesis there, complete in a cosplay outfit. She's about to find out whether there's something to the enemies to lovers trope after all. All right, moving on from writing writing romance to writing other genres. First up, we have How to Survive a Horror Story by Mallory Arnold. This one, a famous horror writer has died and has invited some of his rivals to his mansion to play a sinister game. So they're gathering in a room and they have to solve a riddle before they can move on to the next room where they get another riddle. But if they fail to complete the riddle, somebody dies. Worst escape room ever. So this is a little bit Clue meets And Then There Were None, but make it scary. Another game is The Center of Ink Ribbon Red by Alex Pavesi. In this one, 5 friends gather for one of their 30th birthday parties, and they're invited to play the game Motive Method Death. I would suggest you not play this at any of your parties because it leads to some complications. So they're each invited to write short stories where they kill one of the other guests. But the motives have to be realistic and believable, right? So that means they involve real secrets and betrayals amongst them all. Martin Edwards says this one is quirky and unpredictable, and it's a Rubik's Cube of unreliable narratives. Ragnar Jonasson, the author of our next book, has been translating Agatha Christie's novel since he was 17 years old. And this one is a nod to Agatha Christie, both in its writing, but also in its plotline, as it involves a mystery writer who has disappeared, just like Agatha Christie famously did. All right, up next, we have books that are all about memories in some way. Sorry, I didn't realize I had a mistake on my slides here. So forgive the formatting error. But in Memory Hunters by Mia Tsai, this is a dystopian fantasy in a world that's wrecked by climate change. Whole communities are often in danger of being wiped out, and their memories along with them. So it's a good thing there are memory hunters who are able to divine memories of a place or a person with the help of hallucinogenic mushrooms. But trying to go too far back or too deep in the memory poses risks to the hunters who may be left with intrusive memories, so they must be watched over by trained guardians. And so in this one, our main pair and slow burn love interest are Key, a memory hunter, and her scrappy guardian, Vale. And one memory dive results in intrusive memories for Key, alongside questions about her world's traditions and her mentor and her family's motives. So this one is all about memories and the role that memories and story plays in our lives, what is collected and preserved and who is doing so. And the fact of intrusive memories is kind of a metaphor for PTSD as well. It's really fascinating. Up next, we have a time travel mystery in The Memory Collectors. In this one, there is a company called Eon Expeditions that has invented a technology that allows you to go back and to 1 hour in your past. And there are 4 different people who have enlisted the services of this company. One is a woman who wants to see her dead son. Another is a man who's in a wheelchair who wants to relive his outdoor activities. There's a man who had a whirlwind love affair, but his love interest kind of vanished. And there's another woman who's kind of living with the guilt over something that has happened in her past. All 4 of them end up stuck in the past, however, and they discover their stories intersect with each other. And so they must work together to find out who, how, when, and why they're all connected. And finally, we have These Memories Do Not Belong to You. And this book takes place in a near future. China is the last superpower. And there's also a technology called mind banks that allow people to record their memories. But then memories also become a commodity that can be bought and sold or traded so people can relive the experiences of others. It also means they're susceptible to manipulation. And so the government in particular might be able to erase or edit those memories. So this is about a man who inherits his mother's memories, which also happen to hold clues about the invention of the technology and the rise of the government in power. It's also called a constellation novel. And so this is a novel and stories that can be read in any order. Sequoia Nagamatsu, the author of How High We Go in the Dark, says, "This isn't just a novel. It's a revolutionary experiment in how our memories and histories can save us, by turns heartbreaking and eerily prescient." All right, we go from memories to the devil. In some cases, the devil is the devil. In some cases, it's just the Devil's Kitchen, which is part of Yellowstone Park. In the case of our first book, the first book in a new series by Mark Thielman. In this particular book, it stars a wisecracking former homicide detective who is currently working as a seasonal park ranger at Yellowstone Park. And a history professor has been found dead in Yellowstone. And it turns out that he's been researching a historical conspiracy set during the French Revolution about a missing artifact. So we also have a dual timeline, and we get the story of this historical conspiracy set in the 1790s. So this sounds like a mashup of like the Outdoor Mysteries of Nevada Bar and CJ Bucks, a little bit of the thrillers of Dan Brown and C. Berry mashed together, with also a little bit of Indiana Jones, although early reviewers have said it's a little bit more slower paced than those comps might suggest. Again, this is the first in a new series. We also have The Devil Three Times by Ricky Fain. And this one I'm going to let NPR tell you about because they do it better than I can. And it says, Fain's debut novel does not lack for ambition. Beginning with a Faustian bargain between a woman on a slave ship and the devil, Fain traces the fallout of this deal across the generations of her descendants that follow. This family history contains magic and despair, migrations and hauntings, and echoes of the country's complex, often painful history writ large. I'm especially excited for this one because it sounds a lot like Homegoing, which was also a multi-generational tale about the legacy of slavery, mixed with perhaps The Water Dancer, which adds that kind of speculative element as well. We also have Grave Birds next. And in this one, Hollis has returned to life from the dead. She can now see grave birds that are haunting the cemetery. And these grave birds are symbols of the dead's unfinished business. Another aspect of folklore comes from her grandmother's stories about return of the devil. And she starts to see all of those signs when a charming newcomer comes to town. And so those signs include things like blood dripping from trees and fire tornadoes. So this one has a little bit of that Southern Gothic atmospheric feel of Midnight in the Garden of Evil, alongside the plot line of Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampires. And so it's, again, that kind of atmospheric, slightly supernatural magic realism. So I'm excited for that one. Next up, we have books that are all about the not quite dead. In this case, the undead, the afterlife, and the slightly unreal. In our first book, One Yellow Eye by Lee Radford, it takes place after a zombie plague hits London. Society has rebounded, the zombies have been eradicated, and the survivors have to attend the zombie apocalypse recovery group. Our main character is a scientist, Zesta Shelley, and she's hiding a pretty big secret, her undead husband. So she cares for him and in secret as her own health, both physically and mentally, starts to decline. There's rumors about a research group who's discovered a cure for the zombies, but will she be able to save her husband, or will she start another zombie apocalypse with her secret? We also have What the Dead Can Do by Peter Rush. In this particular book, it involves possessing the living in order to do their bidding, and also getting to watch over your loved ones from the afterlife. This one is about two parents. Their son Ethan is the sole survivor of a plane crash in which they perished. So Tag and Amanda, the parents, are looking on from the afterlife. They're a little bit unsure about his guardians. They're not very comfortable with the attention he receives after the plane crash. And so particularly Amanda is going to do everything possible in order to save him. So she finds a way to possess the living in order to reunite herself with her son, which might mean killing him. And so husband Tag is trying to prevent that from happening. So this has elements of Dear Edward and The Lovely Bones mixed with the more darker The Couple Next Door. Speaking of dark, including dark humor, our next book is An Ethical Guide to Murder. In this particular book, Thea discovers she has an unusual power. She can see how long people have to live. And she has an even more powerful ability because she can transfer portions of time, days, weeks, or years, from one person to the next. She discovers this when her friend Ruth dies, and she accidentally kills a man responsible by transferring some of his life to Ruth in order to revive her. What do you do with a power like this, a power of life and death? This is a book that's filled with huge ethical dilemmas and a lot of dark humor. Sam Holland, author of The Echo Man, says, is Thea a serial killer? Is she an avenging angel? Maybe she's both. Fresh and fun, I love this original take on the crime genre. Combining ethics with a good old revenge story, I race through this unexpectedly poignant novel. All right, our next book, I See You Called In Dead, also features someone not quite dead, although he says he is. So this is about a obituary writer who drunkenly makes a mistake. He publishes his own obituary while he's still alive, of course. So he's about to get fired, and he decides to go to different funerals and wakes in order to discover if publicly dying teaches him how to truly live. This is written by the New Yorker humor writer, so it also has lots of funny elements as well. As does our next funny memoir, Dirtbag Queen, also about an obituary, a viral obituary. So the author, Andy Coren, wrote an obituary for his mother that went viral. It had over 6 million shares on Twitter. And that obituary began, because she was my mother, the death of Zaf the good time girl, Renee Coren, is newsworthy to me, and I treat it with the same respect and reverence she had for, well, nothing. A more disrespectful, trash-talking woman was not to be found. You can find out more about her life and this humorous memoir for people who enjoy the humor of David Sedaris's family stories and the dysfunction of Augustine Burroughs' ones. All right, next up, we have some very unusual road trips. First up is When We Were Real by Daryl Gregory. So in this book, scientists have discovered that life is just a digital simulation. But who's running the show? So lifelong friends JP and Doolin didn't set out to find out, but their journey just might lead there. So they're on this cross-country road trip, touring geographical anomalies or glitches in time. They have some colorful companions like a professor, the nuns, the nurse, and more. So this is The Matrix meets the Canterbury Tales. And in fact, the bus tour they're on is called the Canterbury Tale Tours. So Kim Stanley Robinson said, this one starts funny and stays that way even after they fly off a cliff and crash hard into existential angst. Have you ever wondered if the protagonists of Gone Girl were trapped in a car together? What might happen? That's kind of the premise of our next book, Jill Is Not Happy by Cara Browda. Empty nesters Jack and Jill go on a road trip, ostensibly to reconnect with each other. One of them wants to stay married. One of them wants a divorce. They both share a secret, but at least one of them is also hiding something else. They're both stuck in a car together in this cat and mouse thriller with unreliable narrators. So you're probably not interested in seeing those two end up together, but you might be rooting for the protagonists of our next book, Ren and Ellis, to reunite in Tara DeWitt's second chance romance, Left of Forever. Ren and Ellis were childhood sweethearts, now divorced. They're moving their son Sam into college, and they're taking a long cross-country ride home together. Will their ride be long enough for them to reconcile? Our next two road trips involve daughters on the road, searching for their fathers. And Make Sure You Die Screaming. Our protagonist is trying to find her missing conspiracy theorist father. And in Bad Nature, our protagonist is trying to track down her father in order to kill him. These are both personal stories that also tie in to some more political ones about what is dividing us both in individual families and also in our country. All right, our next three books are also kind of family stories. So the daughters in our last two books are probably not going to be in their father's wills, given their histories together. But these next three books are all about other kinds of inheritances. In the family recipe, 5 siblings are competing to win their father's Vietnamese sandwich shop business, which involves a competition involving revitalizing shops in other cities. In The Manor of Dreams, a Chinese-American actress who has won the first Oscar by a Chinese-American woman has died. 2 families are moving in, contesting the will in this book that is a little bit Mexican Gothic, a little bit The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And then These Monstrous Hearts, a struggling writer inherits a Milan mansion and a very creepy butterfly collection. We also have another book about children, favorites. In Favorite Daughter, we have 3 generations so in Favorite Daughter, we have 2 half-sisters who have never met. Their dad has died, and he surprisingly leaves all his money to Mickey, the daughter he abandoned, contingent on attending a series of therapy sessions, which happen to be with the other sister, Arlo, though neither of them knows about the other. So again, a fun twist. And in The Accidental Favorite by Fran Littlewood, 3 generations are gathering for a birthday party. A tree falls, and so the father instinctively chooses which of his 3 daughters to save, revealing which one is his favorite. And that causes all kinds of funny fallout. And then we have 3 more books about imposters in different ways, mistaken identities. One is about strangers on a train who take the place of the other. How to Dodge a Cannonball is a Civil War satire, which if you think, how does that make sense? This is about a man who first is a Union flag bearer. Then when he gets captured, he then becomes a Confederate diehard. And then he ends up passing as an octoroon in a black regiment in this novel that is compared to Catch-22, The Good Lord Bird, or James by Percival Everett. And then Julie Chan is Dead is about twin sisters, the dark side of social media, as one replaces the other. So again, I talked about lots of different books, and I just managed to sneak them all in on time. But if you have any questions, if you would like to learn about any of the ones I talked about just a little bit in more detail, let me know. You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. Or you can share about which ones you're excited to read. Or any other forthcoming books you're excited about that maybe I didn't mention, or recent reads? All right, if there's no questions, I'll turn it over to the other Angie to wrap things up.
Okay, well, thank you, Angie. I added 8 titles to my maybe list. So it was a very well-rounded group of titles tonight. So hopefully everyone found something that that appeals to them and that they want to add to their to be read list. So thank you so much. We appreciate you all being here. And we hope to have you join us for another virtual program very soon. Thanks. Good night.